Thank you very much for having us, Mad Up North. So I'm Heather, I'm from the Newsworks team, and I want to share with you some research that we recently launched looking at young newsreaders. Now, for those of you that don't know Newsworks, we are the marketing body for the UK's national news brands. So we cheerlead all the amazing journalism that news brands produce across all their forms and formats. We champion the importance of a free press, and we make the case to advertisers to invest in news brands to drive not only effective campaigns, but also to sustain quality and trusted journalism in the long term. So this is a myth-busting presentation. So if there are any retail brands in the room, then I really hope that you're going to find myth number 6 especially interesting. Now, the reason that I am so excited to share this work here is that Manchester is undisputably the home of young people and British youth trends. So in the next 10 years, Manchester will be home to more people in their 20s than those over 50. In contrast, London, quite like myself, is hurtling towards middle age. So I hope that these findings are going to resonate with you. I hope to you that there will be no question of the relevancy and importance of news brands to young audiences. But that was the challenge that we were faced with. While news brands were connecting with their young readers every day, we knew that we had a job to do to convince media planners that young people are the engaged news readers that we knew them to be. So we set out to understand how engaged young people are with news today. Because when you talk to young people, news is part and parcel of their online life. They are a switched-on generation in all senses of the term. They're at the forefront of technology trends, accessing news in innovative ways, and they want to be kept in the loop. They care about the weighty issues of climate change, Donald Trump, poverty, arguably more so than millennials and Xers did. So this misconception that young people don't care about the news is not appreciated. So we knew we were going to have to do something different and something brave. So we knew that passive data was going to be key to this study to really, truly understand how engaged young people are with news. So we worked with research agency Colourtext, who did some groundbreaking analysis for us, and we collected the Ipsos Irish clickstream record of 1,000 young people aged 15 to 29, and we collected every single click they made on their devices, every website, every app they turned to over the course of a month. It's an unmediated source of real online behaviour. It's highly intimate data on a truly monster scale. I will let you imagine the weird and wonderful medical links that I have collected in this data set. There is nothing, I would argue, that is more intimate than the clicks and revealing URLs that we make on our devices, because if you think of every thought that you have, somehow it ends up being a search on your phone. So with nearly 6 million rows of data, we could see click by click, second by second, what people do online and what they do next, We completed the picture, talking to young people across the country to get their views on journalism as well. That was really important for us to do as well. And thus armed, we are now able to bust 6 advertiser myths. So let's start with reach. So, no doubt about it, 9 in 10 turn to news. Reading news from established news organisations, 9 in 10 reflects all global news organisations, that's the BBC, Al Jazeera, and the rest. When it comes to our industry, 72% are turning to UK national news brands. That includes all the journalistic output across football, the entertainment guide, the breaking headlines, and everything in between. And on average, readers checked 6 news items a day. Now, that's a healthy dose of daily news. Now, to put these figures in context, because I have every single click that they did across the month, I can put news in relation to everything else as well. So understandably, we have something like life admin, so that will be banking, our search engines, etc., universal. Unsurprisingly too, you have social media in terms of reach, that is at 96%. But then you have news, meaning that the reach of news is higher than entertainment, and then music, fashion and style, and gaming, and the long, long, long tail of everything else. Now, that 88% is actually still conservative because we also know that some of that time spent on social media and indeed on those entertainment sites like YouTube, some of that time will also be consuming the news. So 88% is our absolute baseline when we turn to in terms of reach. Now, second myth. There exists a myth out there that professionally created content isn't as appreciated as peer-to-peer content. But we found very loud and clear that young people want to live in a democratic world where power is held to account. Journalists are seen not only as a critical source of truth, but actually they're a voice for people against powerful players. So Alfie from London told us, fake news is a serious problem right now. News journalists have a massive role to play just filtering out that misinformation as much as possible. And the importance of trusted media has probably never been so important, particularly online. So 80% trust news organisations. News brands are 85% more trusted than social media. And our findings mirror that, which we see time and time again, that alongside TV and radio, news brands are the most trusted media sources out there. Okay, myth number 3. When advertisers do invest with news brands, there's this assumption that young people can only be found reading celebrity news. So we turned to the 13,000 news stories in our data set, which allowed us to compile our own diverse range and classification of all the news topics that they turn to. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, celebrity news is very, very, very important. But so is politics, the war in Gaza, money matters, and the long tail of other journalism that we saw being read. Now, this, incidentally, is an interactive page on our website, so you can explore all of these different topics and actually see what were the news article that we saw our young people reading under each of these. And then when we tested the appeal of hard and soft news headlines, we found that it was pretty equal. So 72% were turning to what we would call soft news, so celebrity and entertainment and the like, with 75% turning to hard news. So young people don't consider themselves to be hard news avoiders, so neither, we would argue, should advertisers. Okay, a classic planning assumption here, a myth that all young readers are going to be similar. We know that's not going to be true. Now, we ran a segmentation based purely on the headline stories read, rather than any attitudinal or claimed behaviour, and we found 5 different types of readers, and they're very, very different. So the learning really is that whatever your audience, there will be news that will scratch their itch. There are those that love the scandal, others that love the backstory. We have those that can handle the heavy stuff and those that lean into the dark stuff. And then there are some readers that rely on news brands just to calibrate themselves around the truth. Now, news brands' close relationship with their readers, their culturally on-point editorial, and their first-party data mean that they know how best to connect with their readers via the right stories. Okay, nearly there. Myth number 5. Now, this was a really interesting one, that the relationship that advertisers build with parents won't follow through to their children on news brands. So we asked young people, how did news feature in your life growing up? And 9 in 10 told us that their parents or their guardians had influenced the newsreader they are today. So 2/3 share the same social values as their parents. And so we see that the value of news is shared and influence is passed on through the wider family. Now, our last, but arguably our most important myth to bust today, that news brands don't impact the whole consumer journey. Well, they do. So our click-by-click data set found that 7 in 10 news brand readers move directly from the news site to a retail site. So I know that there are retailers in the room today, so I want to share 3 very different examples of how the role of news brands environments can play in triggering a related retail experience that we captured directly in the click-by-click dataset. So first of all, we have a story where we are raising the awareness about a company. In this first example, the Mirror ran a story about the expiry date on Tesco club card points. The reader read the story, immediately logged on to Tesco, logged into their club card account, and headed straight for the homeware section of the site and started shopping. Another is where a news gives trusted advice to their readers. So we saw that a reader was looking for flu jabs, and they were reading a Metro's comparison article, which suggested that Asda as the best value. They moved straight on to Asda and started investigating the flu jab offers. The last example is probably one we most typically think about, where news triggers inspiration. So this example followed a reader on the Times travel section. They were reading an article about Italian cooking, and being inspired, they ended up on the EasyJet website. Now, we can quantify this influence too. Because I know from our data set the top retail categories that our young people turn to after reading the news, so you have the percentage of our young people who did that, reading the news and moving to a retail site along the bottom there. And from Nielsen, I know the digital ad spend in news brands in those same categories in the same 4-week period, so that's spend in millions along the vertical axes, we can correlate the two. And we find a strong positive correlation of 0.87, suggesting that the amount that advertisers spend with news brands in turn encourages readers to visit those retail sites. So that's powerful stuff, I hope you agree, but it might seem quite short-term and activation-led, and we know that news brands excel in long-term brand building. So we were able to prove this by the fact that when we asked young people, how do news brands exactly play a role in purchase decisions, we find that they play a role right through the consumer journey. So of the 75% who claim that they have taken a consumer-related action specifically because of the news brand content that they read, 39% discovered a new product or service that they hadn't heard of before, right through to 31% actually buying a product or service because of what they had read on news brands. Why is retail influence so strong? Well, firstly, readers of the news are in the right mindset to browse and learn more. So Seb in Glasgow noted that as he searches the news, he has the time and the mental headspace to search into the products and the brands that he reads about. But also, the trust in journalism and its editorial has a powerful halo effect for advertising that is considered by our quote respondents. So Matt here noted, and I'll read the whole quote out. He says, I would treat that advert with a lot more respect than an advert that you see just scrolling on social media. Adverts in newspapers and online news sources, they're a lot more regulated than those they see in social media. Young people are savvy to how all of this works, and they know what they should trust and what they shouldn't. So, we now have proof with all of this data to combat the 6 myths that we do know exist out there. So we know now with this data that engagement with all news across all platforms is high. We know that news brand professional content is seen as a valuable source of truth. I would argue that has never been so important as in this year today. Young people, they read a diverse breadth of news content. It isn't all celebrity stuff, and we shouldn't treat them all as one homogenous demographic. We know that family matters. The value of news is shared and influence is passed down, and crucially, that news environments influence retail decision-making. So, dear Manchester, we at Newsworks, we ask of you, please do talk to your programmatic media teams on how best to target young people on news brand platforms. Talk directly to news brands themselves. They know their young readers better than anybody. They will know how best to resonate and write stories to kind of capture the audience that you're after. And lastly, do talk to your clients, because whether advertisers are after reach, trust, brand safety, attention, or perhaps most importantly, retail influence, news brands have got them covered. So you can follow the QR code on the screen there for full findings of our study, and you can have a look at that interactive map that I talked about, and you can even indeed find out which one of our 5 segments you would fall into based on your own news reading. Otherwise, hopefully I will see you at our Newsworks base just round the corner. Please do come and say hello. Other than that, thank you very much for your time.